when it comes to the TV show Free Bert, I'm going to be honest and say I found it to be more entertaining than I was expecting it to be. Firstly, the story, which, while very profound, I found very entertaining, and I enjoyed that a lot of the plots started off very small but grew exponentially. We see that with nearly every one of them, from Bert to his kids, but especially his wife. That was very entertaining. The humour in this show was actually really good, something I was quite worried about, especially after watching his movie The Machine, which I felt was lacking in humour, but this was in mountains of humour in comparison, so I was really happy to see that. The acting in this was surprisingly really well, and again, I take that as surprises. For a while, comedians have been not doing their greatest of job when it comes to acting, especially those in the Rogan sphere, so I do have to give Bert his credit, as that was something that took me by surprise, is how good of an actor he was in this. Now, while Bert was the driving force of humour in this show, a lot of credit needs to go to the actor who played Isla, his youngest daughter, as she delivered so many hilarious and brilliant lines in this show. She was one of the funnier characters and more hooking as well. Not only did she steal a lot of scenes, but she brought humour when very much necessary, and I genuinely thought she was one of the more raw and honest characters in this show, and at times represented us, the audience, especially when it came to Bert's decisions. This show dealt with the theme of being accepted and the need to fit in. We see this heavily with Bert, who adopts this persona to fit in with the rich dads. And we also see this with his wife, Leanne, who is doing her best to suck up to one of these rich mums and ends up causing an accident to her in a way of trying to fit in. And it's really sad to see that they're having to put their true identity aside to play these particular roles, while Bert is initially doing it for his children, believing that if they have the better lives and they're fitting with these particular people, then their children will gain from this as well as they will. But at the same time, he's also doing it to fill that void of fitting in, which he never really had. And we see that the child Isla is the only one who wants him to be his genuine self and to stop with this specific identity he is playing with. Now, this is a theme I picked up after finishing the show and more reflecting, and it's attack on men. Now, do not say that in a bad way. I think the show did it in a good way, as we look at Bert Kreischer, and he is no role model in any sense of that word, but he does his best to protect his kids, or at least help them. He embarrasses them, but it's all out of love and genuine care for them. Yet when we look at the other dads, we see that they're openly admitting to spying on their children, taking away all the freedom that they believe they have, and when really they don't. Not only that, but we also have fathers telling other parents about their children's medical conditions, a very private thing, and just allowing it to be out in the open, which is quite concerning. Not only that, but the way they treat their wives is also disgusting. They talk about them with such disdain, openly cheating on them, disrespecting them, not allowing them in on certain information, and just being very gossipy and rude about them behind their back. And this is behaviour we see Bert not even dabble in, and he even looks appalled at these particular men and how they talk about not only their children but also their wives and spouses. Now, when it comes to the finale in this show, I really enjoyed it because I felt the humour came back in strides. It was very hooking to see Bert's lies come to light and having to deal with quite a tough decision between family or friends and his need to fit in. We get this great speech from Bert, which is very funny but also very anticlimactic. And then to end the show, we see Bert securing with his family and even lying for them, which was really nice to see but also very funny. Now, that's all well and good, but there are a lot of things to criticise about this show. Firstly, regarding the humour. Now, the first 2 episodes and the last episode are hysterical, but after episode 2, I feel the humour pretty much dies at that point, and we are seeing somewhat a regress in humour and focus more on the drama side of the things, which is still hooking, but it's also sad to see humour being kicked to the curb, essentially. There's minimal amounts of humour, but it's not enough to really keep the show going, and the added in bits of humour is very forgettable. And I think the reason why this humour dies off is because we're seeing Bert pretending to be someone else. And it's good to see him do that, but we don't get enough of him being his rebellion self to balance out the two, which is a real shame. My second criticism is towards female characters, as whilst yes, they do attack male characters, they don't do that great of a job when it comes to the female characters, often making a lot of them quite unlikable. And aside from Isla and Kirsten, they don't make them that memorable or funny either. Even Leanne, who has a huge side plot from episode 3 onwards, she has a side plot which starts off kind of funny, but loses traction as it continues, as it feels so overstretched and kind of painful to watch. And then my last critique is about writing a particular plot, as we see Bert being given information about a particular child and their rare health condition, and at first I genuinely was thinking that Bert is being played, someone is lying to him, and this rich dad is just getting a kick out of lying to this man. And I continue to have this thought when in the following 2 episodes we are seeing this info being talked about out in the open with the other rich dads, and it only seems they talk about it when Bert is involved. And I genuinely was really building up this idea of, oh, Bert is being manipulated, only for them to actually reveal in the second to last episode, oh, this is real. Now, maybe it's me, but at the same time, it does show how not great the writing is, that their dialogue wasn't that convincing, that it made me think of ulterior motives in comparison to what they were actually building up. And I can't be the only one who thought that. And also, how much more interesting that would have been if that were the case. Overall, I will say this show was very hooking, very hard to quit when watching, and it had a great amount of humour to start us off, but as you continue the show, the humour begins to fade, and by the time you finish the show, it's not that memorable, unlike most sitcoms you watch on Netflix or other media outlets. And so, with all that being said, is this show good? I'm going to be honest and say it's decent. Rating wise, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Now, when it comes to would I really watch it, the answer is unlikely. Not at the moment, but I'm not ruling it out. Now, when it comes to recommendations, of course I recommend Bert Kreischer's stand-up. That's what he's known for, and I think that's what he excels at, if I'm being genuinely honest. The ones I would recommend, though, are The Machine and Secret Time, as I think they are his best when it comes to storytelling and humour, and he's not being washed up with fame at that point. He also has another Netflix series called Cabin with Bert Kreischer, which I think has a decent amount of episodes. I think episodes 1, 3 and 5 are my personal favourites. Not only is he funny, but guests like Tom Segura, Darnell Rawlings and Anthony Anderson are the ones that really add in the humour on those episodes. Another Bert Kreischer thing which I did enjoy is his cameo in The Shield. He plays a cuck, and it's quite funny. It's in one of my favourite seasons, that being season 3. It's a very small scene, but if you're interested and you have seen that scene, he appears on the podcast Your Mum's House and breaks down what happened, how he got the role, what was going on during filming, and his technique of it. Very interesting and funny. Bert Kreischer is the co-host of Two Bears One Cave with Tom Segura. Tom Segura also has a Netflix show called Bad Thoughts. Very different in comparison to this. Whilst this show, I would say, is funny, but it's more on the drama side, Bad Thoughts is more on the comedy side, and it's definitely on the more disturbed humour side in comparison. I would recommend Bad Thoughts though, it's very hysterical. And then lastly is The Simpsons, as in my personal opinion, I could see a lot of similarities between Bert Kreischer and Homer Simpson. Yeah, they're both dumb, embarrassing at sometimes towards their children, but they mean well, and they do their best to give the children the childhood that they never had. Those are my recommendations. This has been my review for Free Bert. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please like and subscribe, but most importantly, thank you and have a nice day.